adopt these psychedelic rituals
I've taken mushrooms.
of taking like mushrooms, right? So there was one thing. There's so two things in total. One, the first thing was the bread that they eat. So bread's very prominent in like Catholic religions, and what they think this is they've decoded it back to ergot, which is a psychedelic mold that forms in bread, and that's why they eat bread. And then the wine, quote unquote, in the
Yeah.
Catholic religion, is actually a symbolistic result
Yeah.
of them using the psychedelic brew,
I was
which
gonna
is now
say.
the wine.
I was gonna say. So wine. Again, I'm obviously a Muslim, right? But wine for Catholics, blah blah blah. It's essentially it's Jesus's like blood, right? Like that's what they
Yeah,
drink for at
yeah.
church, right? Is that why they have bread as well too? Was because of something to do with that, or is that something else
That's what they
completely?
think. Like, I'm not too sure what the actual like. I've
Yeah,
never
I'm
read
not
the
too
Bible. I
familiar.
don't
Yeah,
know that
yeah.
fucking
I
shit.
mean, neither do
But
I.
like, this was
But
just like the book was just like
yeah, yeah,
at this point in time when the Roman Catholic Empire invaded,
yeah,
they started to adopt these ideologies because they saw how far ahead Greece was,
yeah, yeah. Fair
and they
enough. Yeah.
slowly started to like, go, how could we fucking better ourselves from using their technology? So
That's
they
insane,
started
though.
to do
Yeah,
this, and then that's how religion really got formed, and that was like it started to spread throughout the world.
that's insane though. How literally one of the greatest like empires of like all time still had to learn from somebody else to get to that like a point, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it
essentially
was the
it's
greatest. It
evolution,
was
right?
just
So,
the most powerful.
nah, bro. The
You think
Roman
so?
Empire, I think, was definitely the bro. They ruled fucking half the earth, bro.
See, yeah.
They owned all of Arabia, pretty much. They owned all the Mediterranean. Um, they were into Africa at like that point. Like they literally conquered half the fucking world, bro.
Yeah,
So
they were
I
doing this.
100%. Bro. They had 50 million at the one point, and this isn't like times where 50 million was like
What caused the fall of the Roman Empire? Do you know this?
it was how the emperors kind of ran to the ground. So when Caesar died and they went from Augustus and he went from the Republic, like the actual like Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Um, the emperors got worse, which that wasn't the actual downfall, but it was a huge like a part of it. But it was when the Ottomans pretty much just like came in and wiped them out. So
Really?
yeah, it
Okay, who are
was
the Ottomans? Who did they come from?
Ottoman Empire was like the Arabian like empire. So it was like
Oh,
um, it was before like do you know much like I'm huge into this,
yeah.
but do you know the Crusader times when they had like okay, so essentially it was before the Crusaders. It's like when there was like Richard like the Lionheart and the Salah ad-Din and blah blah blah. This was a step before that, and pretty much it was the Ottoman Empire was pretty much just a bunch of like random tribes that was actually not random, but like they weren't the conquered, but they all kind of like formed into one, and essentially Rome was already going through a downfall because of the previous empire, just like pretty much like running into the fucking like
Yeah.
dirt, and they just had a war and they won. So yeah,
Interesting. Do you think it was such a powerful? And it's like,
well that's
I,
why democracy is so huge now, right?
yeah. Well, I think like one thing that, especially in today's society, we don't understand is how easily everything could fall. Like all these great empires that ever existed have always fallen, and the only two that really haven't are like the USSR essentially and the America.
I think it's a little different though because I think the Romans, as successful as a one person ruling it all, like in that like hierarchy thing,
Mm-hmm.
that was what the downfall of the Rome was, right? And that's why till with like this day, even people who communist governments, blah blah, like sure they have one like leader, but he's not, but he doesn't have all the say, right? He has a very big part of it,
Yeah.
but he still has his council like members and blah 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 and all of that and blah blah. So
Yeah.
um, that's why pretty much all the world is some form of democracy, whether it's like evenly spread out or it's one guy who has much more of a larger like say. But um, yeah, they pretty much destroyed themselves, right? By just that's what I'm saying. Like if you ever watch that Roman like I forget what's called on like Netflix, but I think it was the episode of Commodus. I think it was the last the season of it. He was like the first, like he was the beginning of the downfall of like that like empire. So
How did Rome basically implode on themselves? Was it just like a lot of politics that got
no, it's just
involved? Or?
it's just the one guy who ruled it all, right?
Yeah.
Like they
Like a
went
dictator
from
essentially.
yeah
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So before they were the Roman Republic, right? They had there was a group of Senate like members that pretty much ruled it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when Caesar was trying to come into power, they killed him because they were trying to keep it the Roman Republic, right?
Yeah,
And then they
because he
had their
came in
civil
to try
war.
and make it a dictatorship, right? Caesar.
Yes and no. So he was losing a favor, so he wanted to go. He was going to war for somewhere. I think he was trying to conquer the rest of which was Britannia, which is like I think it's France right now
Yeah,
or something, right? But um, essentially he was he wanted power for I forget the exact like number, but it was X amount of years all to himself, right?
yeah,
To help rebuild it because he thought Rome was supposed to be built a certain way,
yeah, and he wanted
and
full control over it.
yeah,
Yeah,
essentially. But he was going to give that power back eventually, but that was in like 15 years, which no one, if you have that power, like I've never had power like that, but I'm assuming if you have power, you don't want to just give it up, right? So
hmm
essentially, the Senate conspired to kill him before he went off to like war, and then um, there was three different like factions. It was the Pompeians, with Caesar, and then some other one. Um, they fought for control of like Rome, and that's when Augustus ruled for like 50 something, like I think it was 57 years. I don't know, it was some
yeah.
like long ass thing there, right? But um, and then after that though, they just went like downhill. They just kept having shitty like emperors that
Just
would
no
either
stability.
bankrupt the Rome because they were trying to horror or build like massive like monuments and stuff blah blah.
Yeah,
Like it just when you have one guy who truly had all the power of the entire like thing there, it was eventually like doomed to like a fail, right? So
yeah. He's about to
yeah, so
take one bad step.
essentially, yeah.
So that's why you think that these like modern societies won't necessarily will fall with more difficulty because the responsibilities are more spread out and diversified throughout
Well, I
society.
don't think any of the major powerhouses will ever fall. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
times are different, right? Like it's unless they nuke half the fucking world,
Yeah,
then we're all dead, right?
yeah, we're all fucking gonzo.
But I mean the powerhouses. I mean, America. When I think like North American, like general, the Russia, China, um, all the major powerhouses, they'll never fall, right? Like it's
Yeah,
impossible, right? They're just built too well, too, right?
interesting.
Um, I don't think they will fall, but for example, like if you take things like when Palestine, right? Like how they're um, essentially losing all of their land. Like I think smaller countries like that will, but the powerhouses I don't think will.
Will ever fall then?
No, I can't, bro.
Interesting. Unless like the only reason they would fall, it's because they've become so prevalent in society that it's basically the fall of humanity.
Well, I think the only way for these powerhouses
If
to
they were
fall is
to,
if they literally adopt like a Nazi standpoint
yeah,
and try to take over a part of the world, right? Like if
yeah.
America was like, we're gonna go to war with Canada so we can expand our whatever.
Oh, we'd be fucked so quickly.
Um, we would, but I mean China and like so the UN won't allow for another world war.
Mm-hmm.
After the second one, they signed some like things
Peace
saying
trip,
yeah,
Marshall
yes,
Plan, or whatever the fuck it
exactly,
was.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So there essentially there shouldn't be another world war, but
you never know.
you wouldn't, yeah, yeah,